We're live. Hello and welcome to the Thicc Bois podcast. My name is Hans. What was it we said at the
at the escape room.
Escape room. It was,
it's like you walk in and it's an oven.
Yeah. Can you escape the oven? Here's a hint. No, you can't. Everybody always says that German sounds like it's such an angry language. I think it just sounds like a goofy language.
I think a lot of people say that just because like they've seen the Hitler speeches.
Well,
and he was angry.
He was angry. He wasn't angry because he was German though. He was angry because he was a psychopath and he was on meth.
Yeah. Well, wasn't he? He was Austrian, I think.
Yeah, he was Austrian. I think his whole thing was because when World War I ended, they made Germany pay for the whole war.
Oh yeah.
And Germany was like, "How can we do that?"
Well, it essentially crashed their whole economy.
It ruined their economy.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people too is they do this thing where they're like, "I don't understand how it is that they could have listened to Hitler." It's like, well, then you don't really understand what kind of state their whole country was in prior to him coming into power. Like I wouldn't say single-handedly, but he pointed them in the direction that allowed them to essentially come to power.
Yeah. I mean, if it's easy to say that you would not, if you were a German citizen, that you would have been like, I'm not, with this Hitler guy. He's insane. But if you consider like the state of their economy and I am not giving a pass to what happened. I'm just saying I can kind of understand how he gained the following.
I mean, you see today like how people kind of get into these echo chambers, and it's sort of like no matter what this person does, as long as they're espousing the things that I espouse, then we'll just overlook all this other bullshit.
Oh yeah, people have been winning gold medals in mental gymnastics for a long time.
Yeah, it's on both sides too.
Time. I mean, there's that famous picture of like the German kids playing with stacks of money in the streets as building blocks because their currency was literally it had no value because I assume what they did was they spent all their money paying what they could for the war, the World War I that happened. Probably. So Hitler's rise to power came because he was even at that time he was a pretty extreme political voice.
Oh yeah.
Even at the time, when everybody was like, okay, nobody has any money, nobody has any food, nobody has any jobs, our country can't pay for anything. Even then, people were like, okay, this Hitler guy is kind of like shit's crazy, but come on, dude. But then slowly more and more people, kind of got behind him.
Well, when everybody's kind of living in the same fucking toilet.
Yeah.
This like
you're all swimming
shit-covered toilet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, and then there's this one dude that's like, it's like, I believe in you. You can do it. Like, I'm going to show you the way to get this done.
We're going to get out of this.
We're going to get out of this. And it's going to be a lot of fucking hard work.
Yeah.
But essentially what they did is did you ever watch that documentary?
I've watched several documentaries.
Yeah, about them, about like how, like drugs helped Germany to become like the superpower that they were.
Yeah, fucking meth.
Yeah, it's like everybody was taking those like, it was like a Mentos tab or whatever.
It was called Pervitin.
Yeah. And everybody was taking them during the day, so everybody was like high on meth the whole time.
Yeah, which when you think about the entire nation being high on meth, then it even kind of makes more sense how the things that happened.
Well, then everybody was like, "Well, we don't understand how it is that they're so productive and they can work for this long." It's like, well, everybody's high on meth.
Everybody's high on meth, yeah. And I'm pretty sure that they gave meth to the Japanese Zeros, the fighter pilots, before they sent them out on their kamikaze runs.
I'm sure. Well, U.S. fighter pilots take was like Adderall and all that kind of shit to like help them stay awake.
And then you have, I want to say it was that very famous story about that Finnish soldier who his entire platoon got captured and he was alone and had like a broken leg and like he took the entire platoon's supply of Pervitin all at once.
Well, it was like 50 or 60 tabs or something
like that. said that they found him 2 weeks later and just walking around the woods, and he had survived on eating small birds and pine nuts. Just fucking zonked out of his mind.
He's still high.
Oh, what a down that must have been afterward. Yeah, but then you think, you look at like, if you look at what Hitler was able to do with Germany's economy just in that short span.
What was it? 1936 they hosted the Olympics, or was it like the World's Fair or something like that?
Something like that.
They hosted both of them.
I think it was. Yeah. I know that for a fact that they hosted the Olympics. But the fact that he turned their economy around that fucking fast for a whole nation. When a nation goes bankrupt like that, that's usually not something that a nation comes back from at all.
Well, it'd be like, imagine like today if somebody went down and started a coup in Venezuela, and then turned them into the world superpower.
Yeah. That doesn't fucking make any sense. It doesn't
register.
To me. Yeah.
Like everybody's like, there's no way that could happen. Well, everybody thought that about Germany too.
Yeah.
Especially too, Germany like is smaller than the size of Texas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Germany's super tiny.
I mean, they're one of the larger countries in Europe, but they're really not that big.
Yeah. You ever seen that image of like Europe like laid over America, just like for the size comparison or whatever? Mm-hmm. It's like, so me and Mary were planning on taking a trip to Europe at the end of this year because Mary's getting her master's degree and she's killing it. She's doing a great job. So shout out to Mary. So kind of like as a graduation / anniversary trip thing, which surprisingly, trips to Europe are not that expensive.
I'd imagine so right now.
Well, even before that, it wasn't that bad. But we were kind of concerned. We were like, okay, well, we're not going to buy any tickets or make any commitments yet because we don't know what COVID's going to do. Because they might, that's what happened to Chris and Maddie. They had a trip planned to go to Rome, and like a week before or something like that, everybody shut everything down, and I think they got like 70% of their money back. So we were like, okay, well, we're just going to hold off paying for anything until the time comes. And then it was like, oh, well, COVID's not that big a deal, but World War III might happen. Yeah. It was like, well, shit. I was like, I don't really know if I want to go to Italy when Ukraine's like just over there.
Right there.
Just, I mean, like, it's from here to Texas is about how far. I'm not talking like the center of Texas. I mean, like
Houston.
Yeah, Houston, like the part of Texas close to us. I was like, that's like, they could get here today. They really, if shit really hit the fan. Yeah. So we'll just kind of keep an eye on it. But yeah, everything over there is very close together. And it's really weird too when you consider like that western part of Europe where you have like France and Germany, and you have like Italy, Spain, all those places right there. Even the United Kingdom, because the only thing separating that is that the English Channel, right? Channel, and that's not very big at all.
Like 60 miles or something like that.
And all of those countries are so vastly different in culture and language and everything. Work ethic is different. I mean, like the Italians take naps in the middle of the day, and the Germans, you work yourself to death. I think that carried over from...
The Germans hate all the Jews.
Well,
they used to. I think it's like over there, like if you like display any type of like Nazi paraphernalia.
Oh, that's a big bad.
It's like a big time felony.
It's a big bad.
Yeah.
You cannot do that. It's funny, you can kind of get a pass over here. You'll be ostracized, socially, yeah. But I don't know if you're really getting a whole lot of trouble. But yeah, if you do that in Germany, that's not good.
Isn't it interesting how with like displaying like any type of like Nazi paraphernalia, not that I'm like for it or whatever, but like the hammer and sickle's not seen the same way. And Russia committed some pretty heinous acts themselves.
Well, Stalin's body count was a lot higher than Hitler's.
Millions higher.
Yeah.
I think it was like
12, wasn't it? It was almost double or more.
I think Hitler was like 9 or 10, and Lenin was...
Oh, was it Lenin? I said Stalin.
Well, I think Lenin was the one that started the Bolshevik Revolution.
Yeah.
Because I'm reading a book about it right now. I think Stalin took over after him or whatever, and I haven't seen any of the body counts, but I know that I think that it was estimated at one point it was like 24 million or something.
God damn.
That died in the Gulag.
Wow.
And then Maoist China, I think they had 50 million.
Chairman Mao's was fucking wild. Think about...
Have you seen any of the pictures of that? Like when they took over, when the communists took over in China, like they were dragging like shop owners and stuff out in the street, like beheading them and everything in front of, like in the town square.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it was fucking crazy.
You know, it's... Think about being the person who is the figurehead at the top of all of that. And just the mountain of bodies beneath you.
Well, it's not only that, but it's also like the ascent to power is through domination. It's not through cooperation, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, it's
especially in a communist
and it's only a matter of time before it gets turned on you. So, it's like, how do you get it to not to get turned on you? You have to become more and more and more and more violent.
Yeah, you just have to become this insurmountable force of violence.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody's managed to do that yet. You can find violence. Violence can exceed past you every time. It just gets worse. Violence begets violence.
Yeah.
Always. I mean, I was just thinking, like, you know, Hitler, you could look at him and say he was insane. He was also high on meth all the time for the majority of his waking life, so he probably went to bed with no issues. Or he might not have slept at all. Who knows? But if it were me, and like, maybe I can't really say, because as I am right now, I wouldn't murder 50 million people.
Yeah.
I don't think I had the capacity to do that.
Well, I mean,
I don't think I could murder 5 people.
Well, it's like, I think that you say that or whatever, but at the same time, it's like, like you can think of like some situations where, like, what if somebody did something to Mary?
Yeah.
Like, what are some of the heinous things that you would be willing to do to somebody?
Right. Yeah,
it's true. Like, and I feel the same way about my family. If somebody was to do something to Allison or my daughter,
you go like, law-abiding citizen on them.
Yeah.
Gerard Butler.
Yeah. It's like when he was like, put the adrenaline in them to keep them awake long enough for them to like...
While you sliced his eyelids off.
Yeah. It's like, oh, that's a good idea.
You're like taking notes. You're like, remember eyelids.
But like you see something like that and it's like, yeah, you can see yourself in that. So
yeah, I guess you can't really say for sure you would or would not do a thing unless you've been in that situation, regardless of what that is. Even if it's murdering 50 million people.
You don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know what you're capable
plus that,
of.
like you said, it's like, okay, well, now you throw meth on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're already predisposed to that kind of thing, you're like, I could see myself murdering droves of people. Yeah. Well, now you're high on meth. What can you really do now?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a fair assumption to say that, like, there's no way that I would ever do that.
Yeah.
I think it would be more beneficial to be like, there are instances in which I could see that there might be a chance for me to become that monster.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
And then to maybe like actively fight back against that.
Okay, yeah, but that means, does that mean that there's a point where there's like a tipping point where you give in to that monster that, you know, gets high on meth and murders people, and the other side of that tipping point is where you manage to kind of stave that off and you retain your sanity? Or is it a very slow burn?
You know, I don't know.
It's hard.
That'd be an interesting thing to ask somebody that maybe would be like a clinical psychologist.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of things are like that too. It's like, it's like.
I think it's probably like a slow descent.
I would say so, because if you consider like
for a normal person. Like, if you're, like, a psychopath, then you just, like, flip the fucking switch.
Like, right after lunch, you just, all of a sudden, you're a different person. I think that for most people and for most things, it's, you know, it's a slow burn. Like, if you know, if I take a look at, like, who I was and how I felt about things, like, 5 years ago, there wasn't... and how I feel about things now, and like just the vast discrepancy in my opinion on those things. There wasn't one day where I was like, oh, I suddenly feel this way about such and such.
Yeah.
It was just all of a sudden I realized I don't feel the way that I used to.
Yeah.
I can't pinpoint why or when my opinions changed on that subject, whatever it happens to be.
Well, I think as you for me at least, is like as I got older, I was more able to kind of poke holes in my own pre-existing notions and everything.
And your own logic.
And my own logic.
Yeah.
And I think once you like separate your ego from like what your opinions are, then you can be like, oh, well, that's a stupid opinion.
Yeah.
Like
Isn't it funny that you have to do that for yourself?
Yeah, nobody else can do it.
Nobody can come up and just start poking holes in your logic because you're going to be like, ugh, my logic.
Then you're like, ugh.
Yeah, I do. You're like, I knew I was right. Humans are so fucking stubborn. It's unreal.
Yeah, you really
We're all
have
guilty
to.
of it.
You kind of have to, and I mean that's not to say that I do that with everything, because I don't think that anybody can do that with everything.
Yeah.
But I think that like you kind of slowly kind of work yourself to a point with certain things where you go, well, that was dumb.
Yeah.
You know, or like the way that I thought about that doesn't make sense with the additional facts that I know now.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Now that like all the dust has settled.
Yeah.
Yeah, hindsight's always 20/20. Yeah. And it's like it's like we always talk about as being introspective, and you have to be, in order for introspective to help you at all, you have to be introspective in the moment.
Yeah.
And
that's really hard to do.
And that's not something you can like actively do. It's like breathing or pumping your own heart. Yeah.
You have to work on that, and you're never going to master it.
You have to like condition yourself.
Yeah.
And
and
very difficult.
and I don't think that anybody you'll never master it, but I think as long as like you're making an effort to try to get to that point.
Yeah.
It's like that's really the best you can do.
So going back to Hitler, it's like, you know, there was I'm sure that there wasn't a point where he just woke up one day and was like, I'm going to kill all the Jews in the whole world. I think that he probably had, you know, his feelings towards Jews for a long time, and after he gained power and his capacity for violence increased, then it kind of slowly morphed and changed into what it eventually became.
Yeah.
So there was never a moment where he could have been introspective and been like, maybe I shouldn't do this.
Well, I think, too, he probably surrounded himself with a bunch of yes men.
Oh, I'm sure he did, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, you can sort of see that with the way that kind of the end of that war was handled, was that essentially like his military leaders were telling him like, this is a bad idea, you shouldn't do this. Yeah. And he's like, no, I know best. And then like went on.
Yeah, that ultimately ended up being his downfall because he got way too big as far as like his influence over that region. And then once he kind of reclused and just started, you know, ignoring all of his advisors and everything, that's when he started losing all the power he had on all the different fronts.
Yeah, isn't that interesting too? How like you can only act that way for a certain amount of time before like that structure kind of breaks down. Yeah. Right. So like you can only exist like as the authority, like the top authority in like this pyramid, right? It's like if you're not listening to anybody else under here, it's like you almost have like a tendency to like separate yourself from authority structure, where it's like I exist outside of this. Yeah. Right. So like you can't tell me anything.
Yeah. That, you know, they talked about how, you know, towards the end of everything, he started accusing like his top advisors of being like spies and like betraying him, and these are the men that he had worked with throughout his entire military career. Yeah. And they were like, there's nothing that we could say to him to change his mind. He was so beholden. He was so beholden to this idea that all of a sudden everybody had turned against him, and it slowly became that, right? And I think the biggest thing was it kind of became a self-fulfilling prophecy, because he started making all these decisions based on the idea that all his top advisors were against him, and he started, you know, sending his men into battles they had no way of winning, like sending them into Russia in the middle of winter, and they just got fucking
and everybody knows that's a bad idea.
And they got fucking steamrolled. And so his advisors and military generals were like, "Well, I'm not sending my men into situations like that anymore." Yeah. And so they said, "We got to get out of here. We got to get out of this. You know, we got to get out from under this Hitler guy." So him believing that his men were against him eventually turned into his men being against him. Yeah. the world, there's a lot of like cosmic justice and karma that happens like all the time.
Yeah.
All throughout history, there's just this shit like that all the time. I mean, you have people who still haven't gotten their comeuppance, like the Kim family over in North Korea. But that's coming, I think. I think that's coming.
I listened to a podcast that Joe Rogan did with I don't remember what her name is. And I might have already talked about it on the podcast or whatever, but if you haven't listened to it, he does a podcast with this girl she defected from North Korea. And like you can see, like if you watch the video or whatever, like she looks like she weighs 90 pounds.
Yeah.
Like she's super tiny.
Those people eat grass over there.
Well, she was talking about how like they'll go up in the mountains and everything and like find bugs and grasshoppers and like they're not allowed to kill the cows. Yeah. The cows are for the royal family and for the high uppers and all the and like the military and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking about how like if they find defectors, they're like going like into China or whatever, which most of them get sold into like sex slavery into China.
Really?
How what they'll do is they'll take them back and they'll take a long rod. And so like if they have like a line of them, they'll take a long rod and they'll stick it through like this part of like their
through the trapezius
muscle. Right? And they'll like skewer all of them together and then like tie it back together so that they can't get away.
Jesus Christ.
And then
it's hard to think about that kind of shit happening in the modern
brutality,
age,
right?
Because we're over here thinking like there was so much, we're so much better and we're so much more evolved, but we're not living in the same situation that those people are.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I think everybody, especially too, is you surround yourself in sort of like this your own like little bubble every day. Like you go to work and you drive to work and you bitch and complain about the traffic and
that's what life is.
And that's what life is for you.
Yeah.
But but there's also instances like over in North Korea where there's some kid laying on the side of the river that hasn't eaten in 3 weeks and is slowly dying, and then all of a sudden there's wild dogs that come by and are ripping his intestines out of his asshole.
Yeah, that was his life.
Yeah, that was his life.
Now that hour-long commute does to work, and your air-conditioned car doesn't seem quite so
but
bad,
like that,
does it?
But that like that does it still doesn't compute when somebody says it to you, right?
Like it might as well be like on a movie or a TV
you didn't
show.
see that with and I would imagine too, like seeing it in real life happening in real time is a lot different than like me watching on your computer screen.
Right.
Because then you point on that computer screen and I go, nope, and just click it and turn it off. Where it's like, you can't get away from like probably him howling in pain.
Yeah.
As like these dogs are eating him alive.
Yeah. And that just stays with you your entire life. And then you might see the same shit or some worse shit tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know about the generations of punishment that they have over there for defectors?
Oh, yeah. How, like, if somebody, like, speaks up against the government or whatever, like, they not only punish you, but they punish the generations after you.
Yes, 3 generations after you.
That's fucking
and
nuts.
They do that to the defectors. Like, if somebody leaves and, crosses the DMZ, like, into South Korea or whatever, they will, obviously they can't come after you because a war would break out. But what they do instead is they start torturing and starving and punishing your family, your whole family, and 3 generations of your family that come after.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, think about being a person who defected and knowing that you left that behind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then doing it anyway kind of really sells the point of just how bad it is to exist in that shit.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sorry,
like a
but
living hell.
I can't.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy to think about.
Well, it's like I think, like we were saying, it's like I think a lot of people have this crazy idea that like that kind of stuff doesn't exist anymore, and like that's certainly not the case.
No, it does. It totally does.
And don't take our word for it.
Yeah, don't take our word for it. Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I'm sure there's like pictures and stories and stuff you can go read.
Well, let's bring in the podcast.
Yeah, we're already 30 minutes in.
Like 30 minutes in, we dove off into world politics and shit straight away. Oh, my goodness. Well, hello and welcome, everybody, to the 25th episode of the Thicc Bois podcast. We are 25% of the way to 100 episodes. Yay for us.
We should put like a clap.
Yeah, just like one clap. It's like an extra clap.
Or like, was it the old school, like where they'd have like the live studio audience or they're like clapping or whatever?
Yeah, 100 episodes is a long way away, but you think we'll get there? I think we will.
I think we will.
I think we will. I don't know if we'll get there this year.
No, well, even if we did one episode a week, that's only 52 weeks in a year. So,
but yeah, and we're already in April.
Yeah.
So, but it's coming.
Maybe next year sometime.
It's coming. Maybe next year. We'll see.
We'll get at 50, I think.
We might go on another 4-month hiatus.
Yeah, who knows? We'll have to keep you guys on your toes.
Yeah. Well, I guess we need to go ahead and jump on Super Cringe Thursday because we've got 2 to cover.
Oh, that's right.
The other one was the Egyptian military band.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one. Okay, let's start with that one.
Is it on purpose?
It'd have to be.
It would have to be.
It would have to be.
Because they sound like a middle school band. They sound worse than a middle school band. I've heard middle school bands
like a middle school
much
band
better.
that's like a month in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a month in.
We learned how to play Hot Cross Buns.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, yeah, that's Hot Cross Buns.
Yeah.
So anybody that didn't see Super Cringe Thursday from 2 weeks ago was the Egyptian military band playing the national anthems for other countries, I guess that they were in, or they had come to visit Egypt.
I can't remember.
Either way,
the UK one was bad.
The what?
The UK one was bad.
The UK one was bad. My favorite is the Russian one though, because the Russian national anthem starts off with this really like proud and strong, like bah, like that, and then like the Egyptian military goes to play it, and it's just and there's this long pause. I refuse to believe.
There's no way.
And it's not on purpose.
It has to be on purpose. Well, it has to be on purpose because at this point they know.
Yeah, they would have nobody said anything to them yet. I mean, it's so fucking funny to watch Angela Merkel stand there straight-faced and just listen to the German national anthem
get butchered
in the fucking street. It's so bad.
There's no way that they aren't doing that on purpose. They have to be doing it on purpose.
For anybody that hasn't seen the video, I'll play a short clip here. You want the UK one?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the UK one, the actual national anthem. And then here's the Egyptian military band playing it. So you can see why we assume that this is on purpose.
It's really bad.
It's like you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of that fucking episode of SpongeBob where they all became a marching band.
Yeah, the UK one was pretty bad because it's like the initial, like they're in that like hall or whatever.
Yeah.
And like there's like those 5 guys playing the trumpets or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's very like big and like brassy.
Yeah.
And then like it's not music, it's just noise.
It's just noise.
It's just noise. It's like
I couldn't have held it together. Like I'm like if I was a world leader and like, you know, I went over to Egypt or whatever and they started playing the national anthem and they just fucking butchered it like that, I would just die laughing. I couldn't have held it together. I wonder, because you wonder if like those world leaders have like advisors, right, to say, look, when you get off the plane, the Egyptian military band's going to be there and they're going to play your national anthem. You have to keep a straight face.
They'd have to.
Yeah.
Because I would imagine like the first person that went over there, nobody had any idea. And they probably got off the plane and they were like,
what the fuck? Oh, it's so fucking funny. My favorite part about that video is just looking at the politicians just standing there just like, Oh
just
my God.
straight face.
Just taking it.
Yeah.
Taking it, man.
It's so bad.
It is really bad. It's super bad. The other Super Cringe Thursday, the most recent one,
Oof.
is also pretty rough to watch.
It's rough, but it's rough in a different way.
Yeah.
Like, the Egyptian one made me laugh.
Yeah, that one's funny.
That one was really funny.
This one's not funny.
That one's not funny.
For anyone involved.
No. So for anybody that didn't see the second one I'm assuming, well, I know for a fact that it's the musician known as Lorde, who is I guess performing some type of concert, I'm assuming.
I mean, she was performing to a crowd of people.
Yeah,
so.
to a crowd of people. And I don't listen to her, so I'm not sure exactly what song she was singing.
Yeah.
But she was singing, the crowd was singing, and then all of a sudden she bends down and shushes the crowd.
Yeah.
And they all get really quiet.
Like
you can hear a mouse fart.
They get so fucking quiet.
It gets so quiet. And the worst part about it is,
and
there's a couple of worst parts about it.
They sang maybe a half a second before she told them to shush.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they didn't get like halfway through the chorus or anything, yeah.
That had already kind of started up, and then she shushed all of them. And then when she did that, she's singing a cappella, so there's no instrumentals backing any of this.
Yeah.
And then so she starts singing, and she runs out of breath halfway through the verse, and it's all off pitch, and it sounds really bad.
She's wailing.
Yeah, wailing, like out into the abyss.
Yeah. What a strange situation to be in. Just standing up on a stage, crying loudly over a sea of people staring at you silently.
Well, the craziest part about it is just looking at the video, you can tell that there's, like we always say, there's zero introspection.
Oh, yeah.
At all taking place during this whole exchange.
You can tell just like by her mannerisms and like her body language that she's like, I'm so emotional. Like, she's not like coming off genuinely emotional. She's like, there's a lot of layers to it.
Yeah.
Like, you can see that she's being emotional, but at the same time, she's like reveling in that.
Yeah, she's hamming it up for the crowd.
Yeah.
Because she like does this thing where she like runs her hands through her hair and she's like doing the whole like wavy arm flaily thing.
Yeah, like she's like, like she's having some big dramatic like third act scene.
Yeah, and then like her voice cracks. She's like, she thinks she's in like some type of like Shakespearean play.
Here's the audio.
I am my mother's child. I love you till my breathing stops. I love you.
There you go.
So yeah, I mean it's like, look, I paid money to come see you. Okay?
No.
You're not gonna tell me to shush.
No. It's like, guess what? We're going to sing off key together.
We'll all sing a different song. We'll just pick up right here, just sing a different. We'll sing Blue Oyster Cult. Don't Fear the Reaper.
That's very Green Day of her to do that.
It was. It was super Green Day.
It's just interesting. I think like when people, I think a majority of people, when they get into a position of like popularity like that, they kind of like, and maybe it's the people like that are like that don't have it to begin with. Yeah. But like there's no like that self-reflection type deal.
Yeah. They're like buying their own brand.
It's like guess what?
Yeah.
You're an entertainer.
Yeah.
So
dance monkey.
Yeah, exactly. So if we all show up and we want to sing your song with you, then guess what? You should probably let us.
You're just a rich clown.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like imagine if you went to Monsters of Rock in Moscow, and Metallica got up there and everybody started singing,
and James Hetfield was like, "Shut up,
shut up,
Usha," and he starts crying, running his fingers through his beard.
I mean, I guess I get it. I guess she was like going for like a dramatic like a cappella type deal or whatever, but I don't know. Is pretty cringe.
Yeah, but if that was the plan, I mean, like I feel like she'd have been better served to like beforehand be like, guys, please don't sing. I want acapella this thing.
It's very artsy.
Like I want you to just listen to me. Just listen to me.
Yeah.
You know, and if everybody else is singing, you won't be able to get what I'm trying to put up.
Well, also
put out.
too, and just kind of like judging by the crowd and like the ambiance that they were trying to set or whatever, I think it was like one of those deals where it's like it's very artsy fartsy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like everybody in there is probably like got on like leather bracelets.
Yeah.
And like the guys have like handlebar mustaches with like the
drinking IPAs.
Yeah, drinking IPAs, and what's like the little hat that like folds over the bill.
You talking about like the paperboy cap?
Yeah, like they got like paperboy caps and like
suspenders
and like a bow tie or whatever.
Fuck that guy. I hate that guy. Just I can see that guy so clearly.
Like I kind of feel like that was kind of like the setting or whatever they were like trying to have.
It's interesting too because you watch the video, you can see a decent amount of the stage behind her, and there's like no, you know, as far as I can remember, there's like no other musicians back there, or like there didn't even seem to be like any equipment back there.
So I was saying, I think it was like an a cappella type deal.
Like the whole thing was that way?
Probably the whole thing.
Maybe. That would be a weird thing to go to. Especially if it was like a whole set.
Yeah.
It couldn't be. She couldn't go up and do like a 2-hour-long show of just her singing with no music behind it.
I don't know, man. Like I said, how artsy it was.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it could have been.
Yeah. I don't know. I just that's not my scene.
Yeah, I'm not really into that. But I mean, if that's what she was going for, I could maybe see that crowd being more receptive to it.
Yeah.
Than like a normal crowd might have been.
Yeah. But if that was the case and they knew that it was an a cappella thing going into it, I'm sure they would have established beforehand already that, you know, we're not supposed to sing while she's singing.
I mean, they seemed pretty enthusiastic about it when it started up, so I'm assuming at some point they had sang with her.
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't kind of like the whole point of that sort of be like if I was going to do like an a cappella show, which I would not, but if I was, I would be like, I'd be like, come on, everybody, like we're going to do this together. Like you're going to be part of the show too. Like we're going to make this a big production.
If that was the thing you were wanting to do, if you're wanting to do a show where they call it crowd work, you know, where you bring the crowd into it. It'd be funny if after it got deathly quiet like that, you just hear the Egyptian military band butchering one of her songs. I actually kind of have a little bit of a story about a band thing. It was my junior year, and we were at a tournament. So all the different bands come and they'll run through their marching band show. And at one point in this particular show, I think it was in the second song, the three tubas would march towards the front center, like the 50-yard line, right up in the crowd's face.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to do a horn flash and then play a big note.
Yeah.
And then the band comes in behind us. Well, a horn flash is where you just raise the face of the tuba up so it flashes the light off the stadium whenever. It's supposed to draw the
attention
to the tubas.
Yeah.
That way when we play our big note, it hits that much harder.
Yeah.
The show before this one of the other tubas played the note too early. And it's dead quiet. Nobody's playing anything. So it's like that. And then the show before that, the other tuba had done the same thing.
Yeah.
So before this show, I said, and I'm dead center.
Yeah.
I said to the other tubas, I said, guys, we got to remember not to play that note.
You did it, didn't you?
I said, we got to remember not to play that note too early. I made this big thing of it.
I bet as soon as you did, you're like, fuck.
Well, it was worse because I didn't commit.
Oh, no.
other two tuba players thought that they missed the cue, so they didn't play anything. So now the gap between that little squeak that I made and when the band comes in was like a measure long. And this was like the big tournament. This is like the one at the end of the year where we get graded for everything. It was so fucking bad. Oh, man. That was one of those things that I kind of like, I'll be like trying to fall asleep. And it'll sneak up like, hey, remember when you did this?
Oh. I remember when I was doing quartet for the high school, and we were bad.
Yeah,
it was not good. it was not a good set of guys that year, and we all kind of fucking knew it.
Yeah,
and so right before like we did like it was like the districts or whatever, I can't remember, but so we get up, we're practicing or whatever. And what song was it that we were singing? I can't remember. Something about a dame or something like that.
A dame?
Yeah. And at one point during the song, like it kind of, they kind of like mentioned like how she looks or whatever.
Yeah.
And I told Chris.
Yeah.
Because Chris was in the quartet with me. I said, hey, when they do that, when they talk about it, I'm going to grab your boob.
Oh, my God. Oh my God. Hey, Chris being Chris was like, yeah, man.
Yeah, he's like, let's do it. And then so I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like right in front of the judges and everything.
And
like,
how'd they react?
Like I don't think they knew what to do. Everybody
Were you
was
expecting like a big ha 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 like that?
Everybody
and you
like,
just didn't get anything?
Everybody was like in stunned silence.
Oh.
And then and I thought I thought it was funnier then. So like I started laughing.
Oh my God.
Good. Yeah, not the time nor place, but we did it anyway, so.
That's awesome.
It was one of those deals where it was like, because we heard like the other quartet singing, and we're like, oh, we're fucked. We're really bad.
Yeah. Well, you know, when I was in high school, so I started playing tuba in 6th grade, so all through middle school and all through high school. So was that 7 years?
Mm-hmm.
I knew how to play the B-flat scale, and I could play the fuck out of the B-flat scale. Matter of fact, they tuned all the other instruments to my B-flat because I had that shit on lockdown.
Yeah.
Well, my senior year, I found out there are 11 other scales that you have to know in order to get a scholarship to go and be a music major.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I was like, you're telling me I spent 7 years perfecting the B-flat scale, and there are 11 others that I have to learn in like 4 months. So they have this thing where you have to go and you have to perform all these scales to these judges. It was right over here at some high school down the road.
South Paulding or something?
I think it was South Paulding. And I didn't know them. I knew I didn't know them.
Yeah.
And we go. I go in there.
Did you wing it?
I winged it. I was playing notes that I was just making up. I was like, this note sounds higher than that one. We'll hit it. And I could just see on the judges' faces, like, the judges were like, are we being pranked? Like, they're like looking around at each other. And they didn't ask me to play the scales in any particular order, so they picked like 4 scales that I didn't know. So I didn't even get to play the one scale.
The one that I do know.
Yeah, if I would have gotten to play the B-flat scale, then I'd be like, okay, this guy, he's pretty good. If somebody could teach him the other scales, he could probably get it. They're just
like this fucking clown.
This guy didn't see a tuba before today. It was so bad. But I had already like resigned myself to like this is gonna be bad. Yeah. It's just gonna be what it is. So it was a Saturday. It was at like 1:00. So I just woke up that morning. I ate me a good breakfast. I grabbed my tuba and I went to the thing. I've sounded like two cats fucking under a car. And I left. I went home and Mom and Dad were like, "How'd it go?" I said, "It went great. We'll get the results here soon." And they were like, "Yeah, we just don't think you're good enough." I want to know what the conversation was when I left the room.
Oh, God. You're like, all that time wasted.
All those years. Those years at the academy. Wasted. If I had even known that those other 11 scales existed, I would have probably stood a chance. Over this course of 7 years, I could have probably learned them. But I didn't know that they even existed until 4 months before I had to go and play them.
Yeah.
It just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, it's like all this time leading up to this.
Yeah.
Up to this moment.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's another thing that I spent 7 years investing time in that did not pay off. I got a good story for a podcast out of it. So, yeah, marching band was a lot of fun, though. I do like out of the very few things that I miss from high school, I miss marching band mainly just because of the camaraderie.
Yeah.
You know, like all your friends, and it was cool. It's cool to be a part of a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
Especially if it's received well. Because I think in my freshman year, we were 1 point away from being grand champs.
Really?
And then my senior year, we got grand champs, and we beat the other person by a point. So it was like a very good cyclical kind of end to the whole thing.
Everything kind of wrapped up real nicely.
Everything wrapped up really well. Yeah.
Was that the year that you you played the note? No,
that was the year before. That was the year before. We weren't taking grand champs that year anyway because that show was garbage. But me squeaking in front of everybody, that definitely didn't help. We're just a bunch of fucking bozos. We had so there's a thing that they'll do before your show, like at a tournament. So like the band will march onto the field in a specific way where everybody gets to their spot.
Yeah.
Like the first little spot that you're all standing in before the show starts, and it's usually like a grid pattern or a line all the way across the field.
Yeah.
And the judges are just watching it. It's kind of like this little mind game they'll play. And they'll give the drum major, who's the person who does the hands and keeps time and everything, they'll give them, like, okay, you can get your band ready now. And they'll make you wait upwards of 2 minutes. They'll just make you stand there on the field and just stand there. And you have to be completely still. You can't scratch your nuts. You can't do this with your face.
Or they're just like checking for like
they're just checking
self-discipline.
Yeah, pretty much, I guess. Or maybe they're just fucking with you because they got to be here for 12 hours and watch 9 high school marching bands, so they got to have some fun. And I don't remember what year it was. I remember who it was. It was Limp Handshake Man. Yeah.
Was he
He was in the same grade as me.
Was he the drum major?
No. He played saxophone.
Oh yeah. Speaking of saxophones,
well,
we'll have to talk about the music video that I sent you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was like, I think 2 or 3 spots down from me. So we're supposed to be standing there completely still. All of a sudden, he takes his saxophone off of his body. He sets it on the ground. He takes his jacket and unbuttons it, and then rebuttons it because he was off a button. And he bends over and he picks his saxophone up and he puts it back on, and he gets back into position like nobody saw. Like, I remember there was kind of like this murmur that like went through the whole line of people being like, what the fuck? What the fuck is he doing? What the fuck? I remember people in the stands were like,
looking around.
What the fuck is that kid doing?
We being punked?
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of instances of people getting punked by the Villarica High School band kids.
Yeah, well, our football team fought Creekside's band, so.
Holy shit, that did happen. Yeah, like a brawl. Like a fucking hockey riot.
And the funniest thing about that was one of the years that I didn't play.
Yeah.
So somebody, I won't name names, but
Yeah.
a rather large individual.
Yeah.
I'll say the name. You can bleep it out later.
Is it the one that ate 20 pounds of barbecue at Sonny's? I miss that guy.
Yeah, he was saying that he was walking back to the locker room and he had like his helmet in his hand.
Yeah.
He said, and like all of a sudden this fighting started. He's like looking around and so there's this little kid, like, and he might have been a senior. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
small in stature.
Smaller compared to this person.
Well, most people are small compared to that person. To give you an idea about the person we're talking about, he's like 7 foot tall, 350 pounds in high school. You want to talk about a big boy? He was a big boy.
And so anyway, this person like has their flute in their hand and they're like running at him like they're gonna whack him over the head with it. And so he has his helmet in his hand. He just like clubs him over
like a fucking ogre. Holy crap. I could imagine. He would have just drove him into the ground like a nail, like a fucking Looney Tune.
It'd be like watching Foghorn Leghorn like smack Tweety Bird around.
Yeah, like with a comically large like mallet.
I think the funniest part about that was like the football players were like taking the instruments and like whacking them on the ground and throwing them up on top of the school. It's like I just don't understand like if you're gonna fight somebody, don't fight somebody that's wearing pads. Like what are you doing?
Yeah, like armor.
Yeah, armor.
Like basically, yeah, and also like 8 times your body mass.
Yeah. This is like, what are you doing?
Yeah, this is like a very David and Goliath type situation. Except Goliath was wearing armor and David had a flute.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Another quick story about that particular individual. It was one night me and you decided we would just get like this random like amalgamation of our friends and go to Sonny's barbecue. And everybody showed up. And we all had a great time. We all just sat there and ate barbecue. And at the time,
it's pretty astounding, actually, that all those people showed up. I didn't think that was going to happen.
It was weird. I mean, yeah, try to get 10 of your friends together now.
No, I can't get one of them.
Yeah.
I don't think I can name 10 people that I know.
I've actually got friends coming over tonight, but it's everybody lives out of town, so it's like we're all in the same vicinity. We got to make an attempt to be together. But like when you're in high school, nobody's doing anything.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so we all got to Sonny's, and I think Sonny's at the time was it like $2 a plate or something like that? Like,
it might have been like all you can eat or something like that. Yeah, for like $7.
Yeah, it was like, I mean, it was a good deal. This individual ate.
Never seen anything like it.
I don't know. He ate a whole barn.
Yeah.
A whole barnyard of pig,
and it's
cow.
It's not like me
beef.
and you can't put food away.
No, we can. But remember that this man is 7 feet tall and 350 pounds. We were already having like our after dinner conversations, and he was still ordering plates of food and putting them away to the point that like the wait staff were like, "What is he putting it like in a bag to like take home?" Like, no, he's eating it. And then he said, when he was finally finished, he said, "Let's go over to Brewster's and get ice cream."
Yeah, we're like, oh, okay.
We were like, okay.
Because it was like right across the street.
Well, we had all finished eating about 30 minutes ago, so we're like, yeah, ice cream sounds good. He just finished. And he was like, I'm going to put some ice cream on top of all this. So we went over there, and I remember standing there talking to him, and we're just standing there eating ice cream. And he hands me his cone. He goes, "Hold this for a second." And he walks around the side of the building and just the most vomit I've ever seen come out of a person. And just like, I could hear it like rumble up through his belly, like a volcano erupting. And he just, it was like a torrential spew. And then he came back over and he took his ice cream back from me and kept
finished eating it. You know, the funny thing about that is I think I have a picture from that night somewhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think I used to have it. It might be on my Facebook page. But I know at one point I had a picture of that from, I think it was on my MySpace page at one point.
Old MySpace.
Yeah, old MySpace.
It was a good night. I have fond memories of that night.
I do too.
Yeah,
it was fun.
Yeah, I miss him. I hope he's doing well. I think he makes furniture now.
I think he does.
Yeah.
I think he makes furniture, and I think at one point he was or he might still be doing it. He was a football coach for a high school somewhere.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he like makes and sells his own furniture.
Probably. Yeah, I think I've seen pictures.
He
of,
makes
like,
some good stuff too.
Yeah.
I've seen some of his work. Oh yeah. So you had something about saxophone you wanted to discuss?
Oh yeah,
about the music video you sent me.
Did you see the music video that I sent you?
Was it the Hall & Oates one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like up until recently, I hadn't really realized how much I really like Hall & Oates.
Yeah.
But I really like Hall & Oates.
Yeah. Was that the one that had the really weird music video?
Yeah, where it was like it was
Where
like,
I said it devolved into a shit poster.
No. That one was
That was Yes.
That was Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Lonely Heart was
Yeah.
the one that I sent you. Where it's like a minute and a half in, and then like it just turns into
Not
like,
even a minute and a half, like 30 seconds maybe.
Yeah, and like the music video has nothing to do with the song. I don't understand what's going on.
Well, a lot of those music videos in the 80s were like that. The music was like completely detached from what the video was.
Yeah, the 80s were such a strange time.
You know, there's a lot of eras where I'm like, okay, the music videos and like media from that era kind of romanticizes or puts forward like the best of what that era was like. So like maybe that's not a good representation of what the 80s were. I fully believe the 80s were like that all the time.
Absolutely. The 80s, like...
Everyone was on fucking cocaine.
Yeah, you look at like the 60s, like if you think about, and we'll get back to the Hall & Oates video here in just a second, but like if you think about, like when you think about the 60s, like who do you think of? Like what bands do you think of? I think of like
Jimi Hendrix.
I think like the Beatles starting out like in the early 60s.
Were the Doors from the 60s?
I think so.
Yeah.
And then you have like the Doors and everything, and like those, like you can kind of see like a progression there. Like so you got like the Beatles like in the early 60s, then it kind of like progresses, and like towards like the end, like 67 through like 70, like that's when like Hendrix starts doing like all of like the psychedelic type deal. And then it kind of like goes from there, right?
Yeah.
And then you go into the 70s and you have bands like, I think, was it like Black Sabbath was in the 70s, or was that the 80s?
Oh, probably 80s, I want to say.
Okay,
I feel like that metal kind of came around at the late 80s.
But for like, you go like into the 70s and you have bands like, not Buffalo Springfield. Were they the 70s?
I think so.
Yeah, so you have like, the sort of like that, like that set like early
that
70s,
was
like
disco was a big
like
thing.
Nom type deal.
Yeah.
Like the early 70s or whatever, and then it kind of like goes to like then like Southern rock kind of pops up or whatever, and you have like Skynyrd, you have like
Allman Brothers.
the Allman Brothers.
Yeah.
Have you listened to was it The Whipping Post by them? That's a really good song.
Yeah.
You should listen to that one. But then it kind of like goes from that, and then like it kind of like devolves into like nonsense.
Yep.
Like in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like it's like you go from like that
with the advent of synthesizers.
Yeah, and then it kind of like devolves into like this. I don't know about like, because I really do like Hall & Oates. Like, like not like as a, not as like a
meme, but you like
a meme.
like
but I actually enjoy their music.
Yeah.
Yeah, like their music videos are memes. But
Yeah.
But
and Tears for Fears.
Yeah, Tears for Fears, and then you have like all like the hair metal bands and everything, where it's like are those women or are those men?
Yeah.
I can't
Poison
really tell.
And Motley Crue.
Yeah, Motley Crue, where they had like the big hair and
it went in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, it just kind of just like bleh, it's like all over the fucking place.
Yeah, all of a sudden,
Yeah, it was.
So there was
like,
a little bit of something for everybody. If you like music in the 80s, like you had a lot of options.
Yeah. But like it felt like in like the 70s, like really you had like disco and then you had like rock and like of course there was like R&B and like jazz and all that kind of stuff, but it really wasn't like those were really like the two main type deals. And I guess that kind of makes sense because in the 60s, the only thing I really know of is rock.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really know of anything else from that time period or whatever. But and then like you go like into the 90s or the 80s, then you had like MC Hammer, like R&B, like that's when rap started up. So like then you have like this wide swath of genres that everybody kind of gets to choose from. And then you like,
I think like in the 60s you still had, and it might have come from like a sociological thing too, because you still had a lot of like segregation back then. So you kind of had like,
I guess that's true. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Like the American culture didn't really become homogenous until probably like early 90s, like very recently.
Yeah.
And like everything prior to that, there was still a lot of like sects, like very defined boundaries around, this culture in America and this culture in America. Now we have like an American culture.
Yeah.
I mean, there are still some, things that are like, just for certain groups of people or whatever. But that's just that's not born out of segregation as it was. So I think
I guess too, like in the 60s, like you had like Bill Withers and then in the 70s you had like Earth, Wind and Fire and like the Isley Brothers and that kind of stuff, which I do like that kind of music.
Yeah. And
so kind of like funk.
Yeah. Oh, I love funk. Yeah. So like I think that when you start having like all those cultures kind of blend together, that's when you had like this kind of combination genre that comes out of it. So now you have a whole brand new genre of music.
So I guess it kind of makes sense. Like during the 80s, like that's kind of when everything kind of, that's like it's infancy.
Kind of started mixing and
it's like infancy or whatever. And then you kind of like get this like
all these byproducts.
Is weird. You kind of have to like get through all the chaff.
Yeah. Yeah. You started having people wear like jeans and sneakers, but like a blue blazer and a black tie and a pair of sunglasses.
Yeah.
Like to school.
Yeah. Yeah, you had like what was it? Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and like the 80s were weird, man. You had like big hair and shoulder pads and strange time.
Lots of fun stuff as far as media goes. But then you had like the Cold War, and that wasn't great.
No, that wasn't fun
Cuba
at all.
Cuba was a good thing, and
but yeah, like anyway, getting back to the music video, I had considered that being the Super Cringe Thursday post.
Yeah,
just for the music, like just for the video itself.
Yeah.
But the song is so good.
It is a good song.
The song is, and anybody that's interested, we can actually post it to the Facebook page. But the song is "I Can't Go For That."
Yeah,
by the Hall & Oats, which is a fucking fantastic song.
It is really good.
And like I listened to it on repeat like all like that entire day.
It's so you said it's peak 80s.
It is. It's peak 80s.
And like when you texted me the link, you just said this is peak 80s. I kind of already knew. Like I was like, okay, this is gonna be like Hall & Oats or somebody.
Yeah.
And I clicked on it. I was like, yeah, it is.
Well, like it starts off with like him, he's like snapping and like wearing the shoulder pads, like walking like through this like a fog machine.
So much fog machines, and like they always had this like thing going on where it looked like they were standing in a pool room, like a room with a pool, and like light was reflecting off the water. And then you'd have like so many fucking candles everywhere, and like all the rooms behind were like lit up with like purple and pink, and like it was just a really cool, really weird aesthetic behind in every music video.
And like the best part about the whole music video is like it starts off with him like playing the keyboard or whatever, and then so that's was it Daryl Hall? Is he the one that I guess does most of the singing? And John Oates is the one that I think played the guitar, and so like they get started or whatever, and there's like this dude in the background. And he's got on like this baby blue suit, and like this like pompadour hair, and like these sunglasses.
He looks like somebody out of like a character creator for like a Sims game.
Yeah, and then so like they get started in singing, and they've got all the swag,
all
of it,
every damn bit, of it.
Every bit of it. And so like they get started, and like the dude hasn't played a fucking note yet, and we're like 2 minutes into this song, and I'm starting to wonder whether or not he's gonna play a note.
Because this is the 80s. He very well could have just been there.
Yeah, he could have been there. Yeah. And so because the 80s
and they never addressed it. Yeah.
And then he starts playing, and it's like smooth jazz.
There was no way anyone could have predicted like what was good, what that guy's purpose was.
No. And then he just like lets it rip.
Oh yeah.
And he was really good.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic.
And like, and then you see him play like that, and you're like, okay, he had every right.
Oh yeah.
To behave the way he did prior to this, because he knew. He knew he was about to light that motherfucking saxophone on fire.
And the funny thing is that Oats is like did you see Oats' guitar? It was like this like gold guitar that he was playing.
I didn't notice.
Yeah, and then he had like the curly, like the wet curly hair.
Yeah.
With like this big like handlebar mustache.
Yeah. What a time, man.
I was like, I was like, the first time I watched it, I was just like glued to the, I was just like looking at it.
It's like, when did Kansas release Carry On My Wayward Son? Was that 80s? I want to say that's either 80s or 70s.
That might have been late 70s, like going into the 80s.
What was up with his fucking hair? He had like, it looked like a solid object that just like rested on his head. You know what I mean? It was like this big like isosceles triangle like thing that he had.
Well, you know, especially like if you go back and look at like some of like the way that those people look during this, there's some goofy ass looking fucking dudes. Yeah. It's like you go back and look at like I said, Buffalo Springfield.
Yeah,
like, they're fucking goofy looking.
People always wear those really high waisted pants.
Yeah, and they had like ruffly shirts.
And ruffly shirts and like a vest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the bell bottoms that came out, and everybody
like
wore like
platform shoes.
Yeah, it was such a. It's so funny because you look at somebody wearing that, and you're like, "That's from the '70s." I know exactly when that's from.
And then like you can go and look at like somebody from the '80s, and they got like on shoulder pads, and, like big beehive hairdo.
Yeah, and like leg warmers.
Yeah,
like that's from the '80s.
Yeah, that's the '80s. And then you go to the '90s, and you got like Jinko jeans,
or like somebody like a flannel shirt, like around
flannel
their waist.
Shirt. Yeah, that's funny too because of the '90s. I can pick out specifically whether that's from the late '90s or whether that's from the early '90s.
Yeah.
Because early '90s is like somebody has like on ripped jeans and like a flannel tied around their waist.
Yeah.
And then like you go to like the late '90s and they're wearing Jinko jeans
and spiked
hair,
puka shell necklaces.
puka shell necklaces with like that baseball cap turned around backwards.
Yeah. But you know, it's like any time between like 2000 and now, it's really
I can't tell.
You can't really distinguish. There's no distinguishing features anymore. Isn't that kind of weird?
It is strange.
Yeah. Like from 2000, so you had like 70s, 80s, 90s, and so on. Even the 50s, you know. 50s all the way back to maybe the 20s was kind of
weird.
Same,
like,
but they were preoccupied with two big giant-ass wars.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes sense. But like from 2000 to 2010 and then from 2010 to 2020, it's kind of all the same.
Yeah, I guess there really isn't like a distinguishing like
people just kind of wear what fits.
Whatever.
Just whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it is odd. I've never really thought about it that way.
Maybe if I saw a picture of somebody wearing like a shirt that said swag on it, I'm like, okay, that's like 2011.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think that was.
Well, I think just sort of. I guess like during the 2000s, it just kind of and it's like kind of everywhere, and it doesn't really have like a direction that it's going in. You know.
Yeah, it went from being like all these very defined styles, and it kind of just came back in on itself, and everybody kind of started picking up pieces from everywhere else, and it all homogenized. Whereas when it initially came together, it was almost kind of like a chemical reaction, right?
Yeah.
Like it was like an explosion. We had all these chemicals came together, and all these weird things came off of it.
Yeah.
And then everything just kind of went back to just kind of safe area. But I mean, when you look at music now, everything that's popular, it's all the same. There's a lot of music out there that is different. Of course.
I think,
genre, but you have to go and look for it.
You got to go look for it, yeah.
Whereas with the 80s, it's like if you're watching, like, they would have had a TV channel dedicated to, like, music, right? There used to be something for that. I think it was called MTV.
Yeah, imagine.
And they would play, like, fucking, here's Hall & Oates. And then up next is, like, Tears for Fears. And then after that, it's, like, some R&B band. And it's like, there's a lot.
Yeah.
And there was a lot that was, I guess, I want to say not presented, but there was a lot that people were aware of. Now it's like people are like, okay, you're listening to your top 40s pop hits, and that's just all the same shit. It's all the same.
Yeah, but I mean, additionally too, I think maybe like the way that the media was structured, it's maybe a little bit different now. Just essentially because, like, really, you think back then, like, how were people influenced and like what it was they were wearing and what it was that they were watching?
Yeah,
like that was through like media controlled. It was like MTV and like the local news station and that kind of stuff. Like that kind of like, of course, like the teenage crowd kind of drives that or whatever.
Yeah.
As far as like what's getting listened to and like all this stuff, right? However, it's like back then, it's like I feel like there was more like we can kind of push this in the direction we want to push it in. Whereas like now,
because you had no other options. You had no other real options.
Yeah, so like with the advent of like social media and everything, it's like really like that has kind of taken on like its own deal.
Yeah, well, you can kind of tailor your own experience with media now. Whereas it used to be.
So I mean, maybe that's something.
Yeah, that's. It could be that. Take for instance, okay, say the 90s, where you could really only know about the things that were shown to you.
Yeah.
And you were shown a lot of different things, so all the things that resonated with you, that was kind of how you built your identity. So like you like Linkin Park. You like whatever TV show. If you're a kid, if you're a little boy in the 90s, you probably like Dragon Ball Z. So that was kind of your identity kind of came about from those things that you like. Whereas now if you're a little kid, you're like, okay, I got to go find the things that I like. Yeah. Like I got to go and just search through all this shit and find things
that interest me
instead of things being presented to me that I find interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's weird to think that, that was that was like with everything else, a slow burn. That kind of slowly happened. With, I think, Netflix really kind of kicks all that off, right?
Well, I think once Netflix kind of made that shift from like them shipping out DVDs, it's like it'd be like, oh, it's all on demand now. Yeah. So like now we don't have to send you the physical copy of the DVD anymore. You just watch it through this channel.
Yeah, you watch it right here. Yeah.
You remember when Netflix on demand first came out? Like it was like, I don't know about when it first came out, but I remember when I first started using Netflix on demand, it was like 2009. Yeah. And there was fucking nothing on there.
Oh yeah.
Like
it was like before they didn't have any like rights to anything.
It was a fucking shit show. Like I remember the first like that was when like they first started, like they had like the Human Centipede and all that.
Yeah.
Like that was the best one they had on there.
Yeah. And right? Ip Man.
And Ip Man.
Ip Man. They had lots of like weird stuff on there.
And they had Thanksgiving.
Which,
by the way, is a fantastic movie.
It's not a fantastic movie. It's an entertaining movie.
It's fantastically horrible.
Yeah, it's crazy that the thing that Netflix used to be just a service that would mail you DVDs. Mm-hmm. I feel like if you told a kid that now, they'd be like, what?
They'd be like, number one, what's a DVD?
Yeah. How old are you? Or did they have color?
And it's interesting, too, that the time period that we were born in, like, for me to be born in 89, like, I kind of remember, like, before, like, I remember when the CD player became a thing.
Yeah.
Like, before that, it was like, you're like a Walkman.
Yeah.
And, like, there were no CD players, like, in the cars. Like, you had, like, if you want to listen to a CD, you had to put that little tape thing in the tape recorder.
Yep.
Or, like, in the tape deck or whatever in the car, and then plug it into that CD player and pray to God that it doesn't shake, because it will skip.
Yes, it will. The slightest movement.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when they came out with like no skip CD players, and they were like the size of like a fucking souffle. They were huge, big, bulky
Mine had
things.
a strap on it you put on your hand.
Yeah, I remember it had a latch too. Like it had like this like fucking mariner's like vessel latch that you had to like lock into place. It's funny because like I watched The Wedding Singer not long ago, which is a great movie. It's an 80s movie. It's Adam Sandler at his best. And Drew Barrymore's, I forget the name of the guy who plays her fiance in that movie, but he comes home and he's got this huge giant box. And he's like, I just bought this thing. It's called a CD player. And it's like a box that would have like a dishwasher in it. It's this massive thing. He was like, it cost me $700, but the sound quality is incredible. And like, I'm watching that. I'm like, that is so ancient.
Yeah.
But it's really not. That's only
not really
30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, it's not that long ago.
It's like if you could have told somebody who was watching The Wedding Singer when the movie came out, like how we listen to music now. Like I've got this like rectangle that I keep in my pocket at all times.
Yeah.
I can watch the world collapse in real time on it.
Yeah. No,
but I can also listen to music, any music,
yeah.
wherever, whenever I want.
Like not only that, but it costs less than that CD player you get right there.
It's crazy to think that we've advanced that far, that fast,
that quickly.
I think that
like imagine trying to explain to somebody in the 80s what virtual reality is.
Yeah.
Like imagine you're like, here, put this on, and you like stuck it. Like they'd have like a mental, they'd have like
a brain aneurysm.
Yeah. They'd have a meltdown.
they couldn't comprehend what they were looking at. Like even when I first got the fucking Oculus and I put it on, like they had some stuff on there that like shows off like of course like the capabilities of the system, like running at like it's at its peak performance, whatever. Some of that stuff was just like, oh my god, this is the future.
No,
like what the fuck. But then after a while, the novelty of it kind of wears off. It's like, it's just VR or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, I think it was a Joe Rogan podcast, but I can't remember who he had on. It might have been Neil deGrasse Tyson, who said that, the advancement of technology is people assume that it's this kind of exponential thing that happens. Like as technology advances, our capacity to advance technology does as well.
Yeah.
And that's true in some regard. But when you start thinking about what it takes to advance technology, it takes new mathematics, it takes new ideas, it takes, discoveries in physics, all kinds of things. Like a lot of what we're limited to now, as far as our technology goes, is the actual physical limitations of hardware.
Yeah.
Like resistors and things. A resistor or a capacitor is what stores electricity.
Yeah.
Like the best they can do with a capacitor is like however many, volts. It's your limit.
Yeah, a lot of it's like the battery and everything.
Yeah,
that's
like
the
lithium-ion batteries
with,
are great, but I mean, there's only so much you can do with them.
Yeah.
And lithium-ion batteries are terrible about like the lifespan of the actual battery. Yeah. Like they turn to shit after 2-3 years.
Yeah.
So there has to be before we can advance any further with our actual technology, our actual hardware and physical limitations have to be changed first. Yeah. And it's just like,
It's not necessarily like a software deal. It's not necessarily like the operating system behind it.
It's the actual like bones and meat of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it was like, people take for granted, technological advancements. And you just think that there are people out there who are working to advance our technology, and there are.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot. It takes a lot of people, and it takes a lot of, every now and then you got to have that one genius that comes along, that 1 in a million person that...
Elon Musk.
Well, you got Elon Musk, and then you think about like Albert Einstein.
Mm-hmm. You're like a generational...
Yeah, a generational leap. So like you have like Albert Einstein who...
Yeah, and you pray to God that they're like in the correct field.
Yeah. Well... The thing about him is if he helped us get the nuclear bomb.
Yep.
But he was also a Nazi scientist.
Yep.
So if Germany had him for a little while longer, they might have gotten the nuclear bomb first.
The craziest thing about that was, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I had heard that right before they got ready to detonate the first test or whatever, he was super afraid.
That he was going to light the Earth's atmosphere on fire?
He was going to light the Earth's atmosphere on fire.
Yeah.
And he was like...
Ooh. Oh God, here it comes. They're like, fuck it, blow it up. Yeah, but out of that we get nuclear power.
Yeah.
Which, if it's handled poorly is a terrible thing, like, looking at Chernobyl.
Yeah.
And the ramifications last for a very, very, very long time. But it's also nuclear energy is almost 100% clean.
Yeah,
like the worst thing that comes out of it is the spent rods. Mm-hmm. They're that's uranium 320 something or whatever, and it has a half life of like it's something ridiculous, like 50,000 years.
Yeah. That's a long time.
It's a very long time. So it's like, okay, well, now we have all this radioactive material. What do we do with it? You want to know what they do with it? They just bury it.
Yep.
They dig a big hole.
Well,
they dump it in the hole. They cover it up.
Have you seen, there's actually, they have I won't say it's a substitute, but it's like I guess another option that a lot of people don't know about. It's a molten salt reactor.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like a nuclear reactor, except that it doesn't have the massive amount of nuclear waste that comes along with like a nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
I don't know the specifics on it because like when I went to go pull it up, of course, it was pulling up like academic research papers and everything. And I sort of I read the abstract. Yeah. And I was like, I don't really understand
but you're
half
like technical mumbo jumbo.
Yeah. I was like, I don't really understand half of what it is that this thing's saying right now. So.
That's the thing that we have to find a way to get away from is the nuclear waste, right?
Yeah.
So whatever comes after nuclear power, if there is anything better than nuclear power, I think there was a thing recently where they had managed to recreate a small sun, something like that. I remember seeing that, like inside of a chamber, they got it to exist for like a half a second, which is incredible.
Incredibly terrifying.
Incredibly terrifying too, because Dr. Octopus did that in Spider-Man 2, and it almost destroyed New York. Twice, actually. But
that's not at the... Was it CERN or whatever it is?
I think that's where they have the
Hadron Collider?
Hadron Collider, yeah. That's just where they smash two atoms together.
That's so fucking crazy.
Think about how small an atom is, right? And you got to get it to crash into another one. How... Somebody comes to you and they say, you've got 10 years to figure out how to make one atom smash into another atom.
Like,
go do it.
Or wet.
It's
not going to happen.
You'd be like, well, where would you even start? So when you start, it's like, whenever I see things like that, and I start looking at like the machines that they've built, and it's like, how even?
Yeah.
Like, it's unfathomable to me to think that we created that. I say we, that humans, some humans have created this.
That is the same species as me.
Yeah. Yeah. I struggle to make a sandwich.
Well, was it? I think like they had created. There were like trace amounts of some element that they had created.
It was unobtainium.
Yeah, unobtainium.
And that was interesting too because if you watched the Bob Lazar, Joe Rogan podcast, he was talking about unobtainium being. I guess it's
like the fuel that they used.
The fuel that they used in the quote unquote alien craft that they had at Area 51.
Yeah, because essentially what he was saying, it's like it's not necessarily that they're using it for projection.
Yeah,
but they're using it to essentially warp space-time or to bend space-time in order to be able to travel from one point to another.
Yeah, and so they had the unobtainium, and they were like. Or they knew about it or something like that, and it was like, well, that can't be. That element doesn't exist. That's not a real element. And then all of a sudden, they made it. They managed to synthesize it, and it was kind of like the sun thing. They only managed to get it to exist for a very short period of time. Like its half-life was insanely small. Yeah. It just immediately, as soon as it came into existence, it was gone.
Yeah. That's so crazy.
This
is just the most absurd thing.
It's the craziest thing to think that humans have the capacity
to create elements.
To do that kind of shit.
Well, it wasn't like they really created it. It's like it was a byproduct of something that...
Well, I mean, you have like the law of conservation of energy or conservation of mass. Like it can't be created or destroyed, only changed. So like all the pieces were there, but they managed to figure out how to put it together in order to create that thing.
Yeah, because I mean, I guess essentially when you're talking about like... You can't really create anything. No. Like you can only like rearrange things in order to reassemble it and make it something else, right?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, take anything like this piece of cardboard right here. That was a tree at one point, and then you had like the ink was something else. So like all these different raw materials became that. And if I light that on fire and it burns to ashes, it's not gone. It's just ashes now.
It's changed. And that's another thing too. Is like it's not the same. This is like third grade science.
Oh,
it's not the same. It's like gas, liquid, plasma.
solids like matter.
Yeah, it's not the same type of matter.
Yeah.
It's not, well, there you go. It's not the same type of matter anymore.
Yeah.
Or was it, somebody had proposed something one time and it was like, it's like if you put bread into a toaster, it turns to toast.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't turn it back to bread.
Well, yeah, because you burned it.
Yeah.
That's all you did is you burned it.
Yeah.
You can't unburn shit.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? It's the thing about matter is, I was always told growing up that there's 3 forms of matter. You have solid, liquid, gas. And then they're like, oh, there's a 4th one called plasma, which I'm pretty sure is just really hot gas.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't plasma be the same thing as like lava, like molten? Essentially, like you've heated a solid to such a point that it turns into a liquid.
Yeah, well, I think that's what plasma is. You heated the gas, it's to a certain point that it became plasma.
Yeah.
If you heat liquid enough, it becomes a gas.
Well, not necessarily, because rocks aren't gas. They turn into lava.
I mean, something in there was like, like if you take water and you heat it up, it becomes steam.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. But if you superheat steam, is steam a gas? I don't know. I don't fucking have any idea. Here's the thing. I created another form of matter the other day. It existed somewhere between a solid and a liquid. And it happened when I was trying to make mac and cheese. We were going to have dinner over at Mary's dad's house. And I wanted to make mac and cheese. And so I bought 2 boxes of elbow macaroni. And I was going to make my own sauce, like with a roux. And like I got a whole 16-ounce block of sharp cheddar and a 16-ounce block of mozzarella. And I shredded it myself and everything. But I think I made too big of a roux because I did a cup of butter and a cup of flour.
Yeah. Oh, boy. That's a lot.
Yeah. And I only put in 2 cups of milk and 1 cup of chicken broth.
Yeah.
So not a whole lot of liquid.
No.
And then 2 16-ounce blocks of cheese. So this thing that came about, like, I had to get Mary. I was like, Mary, I'm going to hold the pot and you scrape this into the noodles.
Yeah.
It kind of came out in such a manner that I don't know what it was.
It's making you uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was kind of like this extant form of life that I had made. It slid out like a liquid, but then landed like a solid. It was like a non-Newtonian fluid,
It's like that movie Flubber.
Yeah, I made flubber. But once I mixed it all in with the noodles and everything, it kind of looked like mac and cheese, but then it set up and it just became this really very thick mac and cheese.
Yeah, you're like,
I mean, it was still good.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't cheesy.
Yeah.
It was cheese flavored.
How was the consistency? Was it like?
It was unlike anything. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
It was very odd.
See, that's my thing is it's not necessarily tastes that throw me off. It's textures and consistencies that throw me off.
It was just a thick mac and cheese.
It's like I remember one time we had like some type of like white sauce or whatever it was, but it didn't taste the way I thought it was going to taste.
Yeah. It like threw you for a loop.
And it threw me and I was like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like when it's like if you ever like go to drink like a Sprite from like a fountain that doesn't have any like
doesn't have any syrup
in it.
Yeah, it's just carbonated water.
Carbonated water.
Yeah.
It's like I've had carbonated water before, and if I know that's what I'm drinking, then I'm probably okay with it.
Yeah.
But if I think it's gonna be Sprite and that's not what I get, throw it away. I don't want it.
It's such a shock to the senses.
Yeah.
It's like if you ever like had like a dark glass and you thought you had like a glass of tea, but then you took like a sip of Coke.
Yeah.
Your brain's like, oh, what the fuck just happened? I want to know. I know we've got a little bit of time left here. Who looks at all the candy in a candy store and says, I'll take the Tootsie Roll? It's a chocolate-flavored glue stick and is not a good piece of candy. Who's eating Tootsie Rolls? I'm not.
You know, I can't even remember the last time I went into a gas station and got candy.
But if you went in there.
Yeah, but if I went in there, there's like I'm not
If you went in there to
Tootsie Roll.
yeah. Like,
well, number one, I'm not big on like chocolate candy anyway.
Yeah.
Like I like more like the fruit flavored candy. Like if I'm gonna eat like candy, I want like sour straws.
Yeah.
Or like some type of like Skittles or something like
you know,
that.
fruit.
Yeah, fruit flavored.
It's just sugar.
Yeah, it's just sugar. But I don't like very seldomly. Well, chocolate's just too rich for me. Like I can't.
Well, the reason I brought it up was because at work, we had an Easter egg hunt, and they put out candy, and it was a bunch of Tootsie Rolls, like a
Probably
bunch,
cheap.
a bunch of Tootsie Rolls.
Probably was cheap.
Well, I'm sure it was, but who is eating Tootsie Rolls?
You're like,
I don't think
like
anybody's.
why is like
Why are they still being produced?
Yeah, the supply and demand is way off.
Because the
supply is way over exceeding the demand.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's actually eating Tootsie Rolls. I think, oops, sorry about that, everybody. I think that people are just buying them.
You think so?
I think people buy them and then they go in the garbage. It's the life of a Tootsie Roll.
There's a lot of candy like that. Like you have like cow tails. And like Chica Sticks.
Circus peanuts.
Yeah, circus peanuts. Ugh.
What the fuck?
Circus peanuts and there's another one that's like really, really fucking gross.
Wax lips.
What's the one that's like the little wax Coke bottles or whatever?
Oh yeah, like soda bottles or whatever.
Ugh.
Well, the idea behind that is you're supposed to bite the tip of it off and then like squeeze the juice out.
Yeah, I'm not interested in that either.
Yeah,
though.
that's work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like fucking Reese's cups. Why do I have to unwrap it twice?
Yeah.
Just give me the thing. Well, as you may have heard just a moment ago, that's all the time we have for today. I accidentally set a timer instead of a stopwatch, so I apologize for that. You know what I noticed about iPhones? If you have an alarm set and your alarm goes off, your snooze button is up here and your stop button is down here.
Really?
So snooze and stop. But if you set a timer, your stop button is up here and your repeat button is down here.
Really?
It's switched. So you'll find yourself accidentally repeating a timer over a bunch, and then sometimes you'll just stop your alarm when you meant to snooze it, and then you're an hour and a half late for work.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So I think Apple did that on purpose just to fuck with us.
Because I have an Android, so I have a OnePlus, and so like the first time that I used it, I turned on the alarm and let it sit there, and then like I woke up in the morning or whatever. And I'm like in like a half stupor because I'm like still asleep, and I'm like swiping the phone like all over the place,
just trying to get it to go off.
Yeah, because I didn't understand how it worked.
Yeah,
so I'm like pressing this button.
What is this damn thing? Shut this up. Well, yeah. Thank you everybody for listening today. We hope that you enjoyed. We have already sent out the first couple of stickers.
Yep, we're going to try to do the next round here this week. So hopefully, we got a couple people that asked for them. So
yeah, so they're finding their homes. If you would like to get your hands on a couple of these things, just make sure to either send your address to our email or messages on the Facebook page. And then once we have your address, we'll ship them to you.
Yep, just let us know.
You can stick them somewhere that is not near a police station.
Yeah, please don't do that.
So,
additionally, too,
I haven't been by. I don't know if that thing's still there or not.
Additionally, too, if you are texting my old number to try to get a hold of me, if you have that old number for me trying to ask for stickers, that is no longer my phone number. So you were texting somebody.
Somebody's like, "What the fuck is this?"
That has no idea what to do. It is that you're texting.
Oh man. All right. Well, you have anything you'd like to close with?
Nope. Just thank you for the continued support. We'd appreciate it. And then, like Gary said, we'll try to get these stickers sent out sometime this week.
Good deal. All right, everybody. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye, everyone.